Well, welcome back to the workshop, and if you watched the previous video you know that things didn't turn out quite as planned, and the first thing that I'd like to do is really say thank you to all of those people who showed sympathy and support for my plight there. Anyway, as you can see, I've been working on another body blank and no problems on this one. It's turned out really well. So as you can see, the mahogany core, book match figured maple veneer, and that stage of the replica is now complete. Right, so let me show you now how the restoration of the LG50 has been progressing. So I'm just working out the pitch of the neck. So this distance here, that's the equivalent to the height of the bridge. The green line represents the top surface of the body, and the blue line represents the strings. That red line represents a line along the top of the frets. So all in all, what I've actually calculated then is that the neck needs to be leaning back at an angle of about 2 degrees to give me the kind of action that I want in this area here. Why it was so far out in the first place, I think will remain a mystery. Right, so I know the pitch of the neck, how far I want it to lean back. What I've got to do now is get it aligned, obviously along its length. So the first thing I've done is taken a number of measurements and drawn on a centre line down the middle of the neck. So happy that I've got my centre line on the neck. Next step, mark the centre line on the body. So obviously you take some measurements halfway across, get a series of marks, join a line. No problem. That line more or less coincides, lines up with the centre line on my neck. Again, no problem. Tiny little mark in here, little pencil mark from the original construction, lines up with that, no problem. Okay, so far so good. So then we put a sort of straight edge, a ruler on just to double check everything, and bizarrely the holes for the tailpiece are 9mm that way. Keep double checking, and my only conclusion is that the tailpiece was screwed on in the wrong place. And when I think back to trying the strings on initially, there was this tendency for the bridge to want to keep going over in that direction. And of course, if the tailpiece has moved over, then the bridge will want to move over. So that tailpiece is in the wrong place. So I need to plug those holes and mount that in the correct spot. Just to be double sure that I haven't got my centre line in the wrong place, I put the pick guard on, just held it down with some wooden pegs until I get the appropriate, age-appropriate screws for that. Put a couple of marks halfway across the pickup recess, and indeed those marks line up with my centre line. So yeah, tailpiece definitely in the wrong place. The first thing that I've done here on the body is really rebuilt this dovetail area. It was damaged a bit when I took the neck out, so what I've done is grafted in a couple of pieces of new wood there, so that these surfaces are all nice and clean and flat. At the moment the neck is a tight fit, but I've got to take some wood off the shoulders of the neck so that I get my 2-degree tilt, and in doing so that will naturally loosen up the dovetail. If you take wood off the shoulders, then the dovetail has to go this in this direction, and as it moves in that direction it naturally gets looser. So as I say, I don't want to take any wood off there now because it may end up getting loose enough for it to fit nicely. If it gets too loose, that's not a problem, because in general people tend to shim out dovetails with veneers, etc., to get that tight fit. So yeah, a little bit of wood off these shoulders now. Well, so after a few hours of filing, chiselling, etc., the neck has now been glued in place. I've got my alignment along the length of the instrument that I wanted, and as far as the pitch of the neck is concerned, what I did, made up this little block which sits in the bridge position, and the idea is that as I was fitting the neck, that straight edge rests along the entirety of the neck and at that point there, and that's all fine. So that should give me the pitch that I want. So the next step now is to make up a kind of little wedge here which will go underneath the fretboard. The fretboard was sitting on that piece of wood there, but of course tilting it back it no longer is. I could have taken that piece off completely, but really I wanted to leave all of that finish intact. I want to leave the thing as original as I possibly can. So that's the next job, sort this out, and then the fretboard can go back on. So I've glued this wedge on, it fits neatly around the dovetail, and essentially it's the same as it was originally, just a little bit thicker at this end to give the correct angle of the neck. And if I place the fretboard on there, the bridge in about the right position, and lay a straight edge on there, I can see that all of that's going to be pretty much okay. Obviously I've got the frets and the actions, so eventually it will be about there, which will give me a nice bit of adjustment on the bridge there, so somebody can lower the action if they want. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So the next step is obviously to glue the fretboard on. Right, so we're ready to glue the fretboard on. So I've got those little pegs that you saw in one of the previous videos. So there are 8 of those, so that will make sure that the fretboard is perfectly aligned with the neck. The fretboard itself obviously has got quite a curve on it, so I've shaped this block to fit over that, and that will spread the clamping pressure. And also I've made up these little V blocks to go on the back of the neck, and of course that will give me 2 points of contact instead of just one when I apply pressure. And I've got this kind of plastic packaging material there to stop any damage to the back of the neck. And it's really funny how your mind works, because this is clearly completely battered and been knocked about for the last 60 years, but all of a sudden when it's on the bench and you're working with it, everything's precious and you don't want to damage it. So yeah, I think I'm just about ready now to glue that fretboard on. So the fretboard's on, that all went on very nicely, and now we just need to true it up and try to really restore this surface. There's a few dings and tears out of it from strings and playing, etc. So yeah, let's do that. So I've cleaned up that surface. That playing surface is absolutely spot on, so I'm really pleased with that. The only thing, of course, quite funny really, is that all my position markers have disappeared. This material, this pearly kind of material that they used, was absolutely paper thin, and as soon as I started sanding I knew that that was going to happen. I have got some perloid, and this is made from celluloid, so it's actually kind of period correct, if you like. So I'll be cutting some inlays out of that and getting that fretboard inlaid with markers before I obviously fret it. Well, there we are. I feel really pleased with the progress that's been made on the Guyatone now. I feel like I've turned a corner and things are coming together rather than being ripped apart. So yeah, so thanks very much for taking the time to watch this video, and see you in the next one. Until then, you take care. Cheers.